Rajeev Chandrasekhar, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Let's start with that election. I think when you were asked to go and fight in Kerala, most of us thought of this as being a suicide bombing mission because you had absolutely no chance of winning, yet you were a high-profile candidate against a very high-profile candidate. So people thought you would make your mark and then you would come home having been defeated honorably. As it turned out, you very nearly won.
Yeah, so I think you're not off the mark. I think a lot of people, including some very senior leaders, when I came to know about this at the end of Feb and early March, that I was in a sense leaving Karnataka and going to Kerala. Karnataka was where my last 18 years of politics have been. And I was being given this opportunity to go in Kerala and fight an election. Certainly, the initial response from people in Trivandrum and my leadership here as well was, this is going to be a tough fight for you.
Right.
And tough is, of course, a way of sugarcoating.
You lose and come back.
So it was a near impossible. And as a matter of fact, when I landed there on the 6th of March, on my first day there in Tirunelveli, some of the people there said the last election was an election where the BJP candidate lost by 1 lakh votes.
Right.
And that the general bet was that I would lose by 2 lakhs.
I think that was everyone's view, let's be honest.
So I was new.
Because you were also seen as an outsider.
I was new to the
constituency.
My politics had been for 18 years in Karnataka. And so there were many things stacked up against me. At least that's the way the pundits saw it. But I certainly was not going there to go by what pundits were forecasting, or indeed, all of the punters were. There was an opportunity that my Prime Minister had given me, and I certainly wanted to show that I deserved that opportunity and I was worthy of it. And I went in there clearly from day one working flat out to make the case that Tirunelveli as a district and Kerala in general had in a sense lagged behind the rest of the country in terms of development opportunities. And I ran a campaign which is an absolutely positive campaign. I did not stray from what I believed was a campaign of optimism and what I call the politics of performance. My hashtag from day one was politics of performance. And then we ended up, as I tell people afterwards, I ran out of time. It was a large constituency, very diverse constituency with significant rural population.
Yeah.
It's not the conventional wisdom that Thiruvananthapuram, because it's a capital, is all very urban. It's not.
Parts of it are rural.
Yeah, there are 3 very large segments, assembly segments that are very, very rural. Fishermen, fishing community, agricultural community. So I just ran out of time in terms of actually meeting people and going to places. So I had 35 days and I think I did what I could. I worked very hard, and the party and the organization, and I got support from places that I never expected to get. And we ended up with a result that was a close result. I don't like losing. I would have certainly liked it to be close for the opponent of mine, not for myself.
How much you lose by eventually?
If I had got about 8,000 votes more, I would have won. Effectively.
And because for much of the counting, you were leading.
I was leading, and I think certain pockets, which were pockets where unfortunately religion and certain local factors, including some community leaders, made statements against a party that went against us. But even despite all of that, the conventional wisdom that I would not poll votes amongst the Christian community, I got significant support from them as well. And just goes to show that at the end of the day, regardless of who you are, when there is a conversation about development, opportunity, everybody wants to be part of that.
Was there a time in the campaign when you realized the tide was turning? You weren't this no-hoper candidate any longer. You were in with a chance?
I went in there, like I said, the early days, everybody told me that this is impossible. This is this very strong candidate. And in Malayalam, there's a word called Vishwapauravan, as in global citizen, and that he's been around for 15 years and it's got a lot of minority, non-Hindu votes. So the conventional equation was that this is going to be extremely difficult for me. But very early on, 7, 8, 10 days, I realized that fundamentally nothing had happened in Thiruvananthapuram for many, many years.
Mm-hmm.
So there is no investments, no jobs, no opportunity for the youth. Schools and colleges remain derelict. I mean, for the so-called Kerala model, even I used to sit here and read about it and admire it and say, this is all very great, what they've achieved. But there were no labs, modern labs in colleges. And really, the state is, in a sense, caught in a time warp. They are still stuck in the 60s and 70s. Can you imagine anywhere else in the world where a 22-year-old or an 18 or a 19-year-old is still being taught and spoon-fed Karl Marx? I mean, it is that that out of whack with where the rest of the country was going. So very early on, I think 7, 10, 15 days, I realized that this so-called citadel was not a citadel. It was really more of a house of cards that was built using a lot of smokes and mirrors and a narrative about the BJP being anti-minority and all of that. And I launched a campaign that talked about politics of performance, who I am, what had been achieved by the government in the last 10 years in terms of development, in terms of infrastructure. And I found very quickly that the youngsters, the women, the voters were responding to it, and I could see it. And I realized that this is certainly not the imagery and the narrative that somehow all of this is very, very rock solid and built around ideological bastions of Marxism and so-called Congress ideology is actually not true. The voter in Thiruvananthapuram or as a voter in Thrissur, all of them want the same thing as a voter in, let us say, Ghaziabad or Mumbai or New Delhi, which is what? Which is a brighter future, a public servant and a public representative who's committed to work for them. And I saw, then I realized that I was in with a good chance, and I worked, that catalyzed me in a sense. And I worked very hard. I can tell you that I am a workaholic, and I've worked hard in my life many times. I've never worked as hard as I worked.
Really?
Yeah, no, absolutely. It was like a really a routine that would start at 7 in the morning and end at 2 early next day morning. And I really worked hard. And in a lot of ways, the outcome of getting 3.5 lakh votes, 3.54 lakh votes, out of the 9 odd lakh votes that were polled, told me that people, that effort was worthwhile, that I actually ended up building bridges and building confidence, because I was not, I'm not a classic politician in that sense. And you would agree that I didn't have that kind of a mass following that I brought to the table. I didn't have a community. I'm not known as a community leader, even though I do belong to the Nair community. So none of that I had with me. But what I had was essentially the 10 years of track record of what the government had done, my own personal credibility and my own work as a minister. And, when we started articulating it and speaking, people responded.
On polling day, when everybody went in to vote, did you feel you'd won or lost?
No, I never felt I had won, but I certainly knew that it was a close election.
You knew by then?
Yeah, I knew on election day that was very close. But of course, I believed that I would win in a close election. And the reason I believed it was close and not very clearly in my favor, because there was always this the minority vote question mark. And it didn't help that one of the archbishops of one of the communities, the Latin Catholic community, 3 days before the election, actually put out a public statement against the BJP. So, and that Latin Catholic community is a huge community in Thiruvananthapuram. So, I knew it was going to be close. I knew that despite all these announcements by the Archbishop, etc., that there was a considerable amount of support I was getting from that community. But it was not clear to me how it would finally fall, which way the dice would fall. And the results on 4th told me that it was close.
Were you intimidated about facing Shashi Tharoor, who's won, 3 times there before?
No, I mean, I'm not easily intimidated anyway, but I think when you realize, and I don't want to make this personal at all, but I realized that, and from my own experience in contesting, helping candidates like Anand Kumar contest in Bangalore against Congress candidates, that this time around we had something strong to talk about. And the Congress, as has become now almost a pattern, and they're doing it successfully, of course, have a very simple narrative of essentially BJP being anti-minority.
Minority.
And that gets amplified in Kerala. In Kerala, they have very little to say, excepting to say, if the BJP comes, all of you will have problems. And this is addressed at the minority community. So that was easy for me to take on, because I knew what he stood for and what his campaign was about. His campaign was not about development, because he had not done anything. And it was very easy for me to actually go and stand next to living, breathing symbols of neglect. I mean, I would go, I didn't have to do very much. I could just go to a home of a fishing community that did not have tap water. I could go to a home of a fishing community whose lives have been devastated because the fishing pier had collapsed 5 years ago and nobody had done anything about it. So I didn't have to do very much talking. I just had to go and show what had not happened in the last 10 to 15 years. And his counter, as was the counter of the CPI candidate as well, was to say, no, the BJP and the NDA means Muslims and Christians are in trouble. And so that takes them that takes them some distance. And this time they took it 8,000 votes more than me.
There is a feeling that you talked about Kerala, secularism, the fact that so many different religions have coexisted peacefully, relatively peacefully for so long, a suggestion that the BJP, which will be painted by the Congress and the left as being essentially a Hindu party and a North Indian party, not just a Hindu party, will never make headway. You've more or less proved that wrong in your constituency. Is there a future for the BJP in Kerala?
No, absolutely. I think it's to paraphrase that old ad, the future is bright, the future is BJP in Kerala. And I'll tell you why. It's simple. You don't even have to be a great political analyst to understand this. 75 years or 70 odd years, it has been either the Congress or the left that has been governing Kerala. And you look at today, the report card of Kerala, shown of all the spin and the hyperbole that the left and the Congress will occasionally put out there. It is a bankrupt economy. There is absolutely no investment of any sort. There is no element of the GDP or the state GDP that grows, including agriculture. The only thing that today the state government today depends on is the remittances coming from the Middle East. So it is essentially exporting the youth, because there is no opportunity in Kerala, to the Middle East to work in very risky circumstances, as a recent fire in Kuwait showed. And that remittances comes back and in a sense keeps this economy afloat. And people are tired of this. So far, they've had absolutely no option. It's been, yin and yang or Tweedledum and Tweedledee. And it is for the first time today that with Suresh Gopi winning in Thrissur, with my electoral performance, then Anil Antony in Pathanamthitta, then you had Shobha Surendran in Alappuzha, all clocking 30 plus vote percentages in each of these constituencies, that there is really now a narrative that says that we have to ignore this 60-year-old, 50-year-old narrative that somehow BJP is untouchable. And that BJP is in the mix today as one of the three options in Kerala and one of the two options or three options in Tamil Nadu. And you've seen the performance in Andhra Pradesh, you've seen the performance in Telangana, you've seen the performance in Karnataka. So the untouchability argument, and so North Indian, is dead, is buried.
Okay.
Now the next step is at what point does this inflection or this growth of the BJP result in a government of the BJP or a real critical mass in terms of legislative representation in Kerala and in Tamil Nadu? Because these are the two last remaining bastions. Karnataka, we are present. Telangana, we've done very well, as you know.
Yeah.
And Andhra, we've done very well. So now, if you want to perpetuate that thing that BJP is a North Indian party, then you'll have to start saying BJP is a North plus Andhra plus Telangana plus Karnataka party and minus Kerala and Tamil Nadu. So I think it's a question of time. that leaders, the local, I mean, you have Annamalai in Tamil Nadu, and you have a lot of now local leadership in Kerala and other states, which is precisely how, if you look at the growth and the birth and the growth of the BJP in Karnataka, which I have some experience on, from the mid to late 90s, it just took off. We had Anant Kumar, we had Yediyurappa ji, and then, the whole party just grew from 2 MLAs to forming multiple governments and multiple. So I think the BJP in Tamil Nadu and Kerala in particular is at that inflection point. Earlier on, if you had asked me 5-7 years ago, we were the pre-inflection point. We were still trying to find our way. But these elections prove without a doubt that we are in the game, and the people consider that we are in the game.
Okay, let me give you the counter argument. The counter argument is that the left has collapsed. If you look at their vote share in Kerala, people were looking for an alternative. The Congress had been around, as you say, Tweedledee, Tweedledum. So you guys gained. The places where you did the best, your constituency, you were not seen as being a traditional BJP person. You are not, in fact, even a traditional politician. Suresh Gopi is a movie star. He has his own following. Anil Antony, who did well, is a Congress defector. That the hardcore BJP person will still have difficulty in Kerala. Is that fair?
Look, you can see, you can bell this multiple ways, and this is the art of politics. You can analyze it and still be right in any which way. The reality of this is the following. Look, Suresh Gopi is a BJP MP, and a whole bunch of people have voted for him as a BJP MP. They didn't vote.
That's true.
Whether 30% of the vote was Suresh Gopi as an actor and 70% was it for BJP, or vice versa, you can keep doing that arithmetic and it won't matter. The point today is that when you say the left is imploding and the BJP is growing, is it because the BJP is growing and the left is imploding, or is it vice versa?
Sure.
When Mamata Banerjee went to West Bengal, did she grow and the left implode as a consequence of her growth, or did the left implode and she grow as a consequence? That is again one of those, those whole
which way you look at it,
gravity, exactly, the origin of mankind kind of a question. So I think regardless of what came first, the reality is the following, that Marxism and communism as an ideology died and was buried by the Soviet Union and China many decades ago. The last vestiges of this is in Kerala. I think it is absolutely a safe assumption that Marxism as it today stands will get buried in Kerala, will die there a natural death over the coming years.
How long?
That 10 depends. Yeah, now whether the BJP's growth accelerates it, or whether they implode on their own, or can we help their implosion? Will the Congress help their implosion? The fact is, I don't see beyond the 2026 election cycle in the state, the left surviving as an ideology.
Really?
Yeah, I don't see it. Because look, they have not delivered anything today that any government today delivers. In Andhra, in Telangana, everywhere, even if you're an India Alliance government, you do deliver something. Tamil Nadu today is one of the biggest recipients of investments. That is why you can still run the dynasty business the way they run it. But you have a funny situation in Kerala that, excepting for the remittances, there is no economic activity. A traditional agricultural economy like Kerala today has declining agricultural growth over the last 8 years that the CPM has been in government. A government has to borrow to pay its own salaries and pensions. So I will argue today, and I'm no astrologer, that it's in the death throes, that ideology. And the traditional vote bank of the left, which happens to be a certain community, the poor, the SCs, and some part of the Nair community, where does that community go? Do these votes go to the Congress? Do they go to the BJP, NDA? I think that we will see in the next 2 years as we prepare for the 2026 assembly elections. Certainly the 2026 elections are going to be very, very important for Kerala, because I think it will mark almost like a change or the pivot in the state's political trajectory so far.
You've been quite active in Karnataka politics for many years.
Yes.
So does this mean you're now shifting your attentions full time to Kerala?
100%. 18 years I tried to serve Karnataka and Bengaluru. I did a lot of activism in Bengaluru to protect the lakes and the environment, and urban governance and so on and so forth. But the day that my Prime Minister and my party leader told me, now your future is in Thiruvananthapuram and Kerala, my focus is now exactly that. And that is my motherland, if you want to call it that.
Sure.
That is where I come from. So I never thought I would get that opportunity to serve in Kerala. I got it, and I'm pleased to be focused on that.
Would you ideally, it's not up to you alone, like to stay on in that constituency? Because Shashi says he's not standing again.
No. I'm here. I didn't come to Thiruvananthapuram just to fight an election. Certainly not. I said it on the day I arrived there, and I said it on the day I lost the election, that I came here to make a difference, and I'm here to make a difference. And every month I go there. I spend 4 to 5 days a month. I address whatever I can address as a non-MP, and I will continue to do that. I don't go on these. I don't view these assignments as election-oriented or temporary or episodic. These are commitments that I make, and that is why I got into public service. I mean, if you remember, you spoke to me many years ago, and you characterized my approach into politics as being that of public life and public service. And that is 18 years on, that remains intact. And that's exactly why I will be fully committed to Thiruvananthapuram.
Perfect, because that leads me exactly into what I was going to ask you. You joined politics even though you had no need for money. You didn't join it for personal glory, from whatever I've seen about you. When you were in Karnataka, and you've been there for many years, you were an activist on issues, not just the environment, but on things like the armed forces, getting the armed forces a better deal, the armed forces memorial. All these were your pet issues. It's now been, what, 18 years?
Yes.
Has it been worth it?
Oh, of course. I think my idea was to make an impact. I got into this not knowing that I would last so long in politics. And I got into thinking that I'll get one term, and that's, I think, when we first met, when I was my first term. I think I have, in my own humble way, made a difference in terms of the politics that I have done. And I have reasonably satisfied with what I've achieved. In the last 3 years as a minister that the Prime Minister gave me an opportunity to serve, I think in the areas of tech and entrepreneurship and skilling, and before that on many other areas as an MP, I think I've made a mark. And as a matter of fact, on the day that I gave up was my last day as a minister, I happened to have a new intern who put out a tweet.
I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah, so, and the response to that was so shrill and visible from all quarters of the country.
For people who didn't see the tweet, just tell us what it said.
No, so it was the last day of my ministership, and that was the day, which was an emotional day, because all the staff that worked with me as a minister were wishing me farewell. The secretaries of the departments came and wished me farewell, and there was a lot of emotion that day. And I had a new private intern who was taking over my social media from the government team. And he put down that this is my last day in public life. When he should have said, this is my last day in public life as a minister and an MP.
Yeah.
So that tweet got out, and people started thinking that I was quitting politics and public life.
I saw it and I responded. I thought you were quitting.
Yeah. So unfortunately, the last 2 lines said, I will now be a karyakarta of the BJP. And that, I think everybody missed it, because it should have been maybe on the top. And the reaction that I got was so, amazing in a negative way initially, and amazing in hindsight, that I had to quickly delete that and clarify in detail, because people didn't want me to leave. And that was something in hindsight that I felt, was a good thing. Of course,
well, the people who said you shouldn't quit came from all political parties.
All political parties. There were veterans, there were people from Bangalore, there were people who were just engaged within Thiruvananthapuram that said, don't worry about your defeat. I was not looking for any of those things. I was just making a point that I was shifting gears from being a minister and an MP to being a real political worker. That was the point I wanted to make. Unfortunately, it came out different, but the response I got, in a sense, revalidated that the 18 years had been worth it, and that people did look up to me with some respect and affection.
We know you now because you've been in politics, but younger people will probably not know this, but an older generation remembers you as one of the tech whiz kids who made his first fortune with mobile telephony
Right.
and was one of the pioneers. And later went into satellite television, where you made a second fortune.
Right.
So, giving all of that up and getting into government and working with tech. What was that like, actually being in a position to make the
No,
decisions?
I will tell you, at the risk of sounding very melodramatic, these 3 years as a minister that I got an opportunity from our Prime Minister have been absolutely inspirational. In the sense, not because of the things I achieved, but the numbers of young Indians that I got to meet. And I have never experienced that in the past. I had the occasion over 3 years to go to over 75 colleges across the length and breadth of the country, from the north to the northeast to the west to the south. And it is absolutely inspiring to see this young generation today, this generation of youngsters who are all entering college, who are getting out of college, so confident, so clear in their minds about what they want to do, so committed, so determined to be successful. And it was not like that when we were young. And I mean, I think you'll agree too. We would all get out with trepidation, with worry that what the future would look like. There is none of that today, and the capabilities and the achievements that these youngsters are coming up with in the tech world in particular is absolutely world class. And I took a group of them to the UK, and I happened to take them and introduce them to Prime Minister Boris Johnson about a few days before he lost his job, for breakfast in his house in 10 Downing. And he met with them, and I was so proud. He met with them, and then he caught my hand and he said, Raji, what is Narendra Modi feeding them? Because these youngsters represent such a new India, such an energetic, confident India, that these 3 years, in my opinion, you take everything away from me, the Gadi, the Bangla and everything. Just the fact that I got this opportunity to engage with them and to help them and mentor them and play a small role in their successes has been absolutely an inspirational thing. And it tells me that this India is in a lot of ways unstoppable. It's a very, very, very different India from what I knew as an entrepreneur and what we all knew even just 10, 15 years ago. This is a very different momentum and energy that we are seeing.
So, what role will tech play in India's future?
Oh, I think it'll be a big, big role. I think just by pure numbers, in 2014, the digital economy was about 4.5% of the GDP. Today, we are at about 11%, 12% of the GDP. And by 26, 27, if all goes well to plan, 1/5 of the GDP will be digital.
20%?
20%. That's how fast. And the digital economy is growing 3 times the GDP, normal GDP. So investments, innovation, and there is not one segment of our society or government or our workplace that is not digitizing today. That comes with a lot of opportunities as well as challenges, as you saw recently with the Microsoft 365 outage. So there are many, many, many opportunities with AI and semiconductors and the new forms of compute coming up. Indian innovation certainly, from a decade and a half ago, being consumers of tech that were being architected and built in the US and Western Europe, and is now going to be in the lead table and going to shape the future of tech. On that, I have absolutely no doubt, which is the big qualitative difference. Earlier, we would say, okay, Silicon Valley is doing the innovation, we will consume it, do a little bit of value add on that, do a little back office, IT, ITS, and then we'll make some money on that. Today, the platforms of the future are being designed, architected, and built here. Chips are being designed in India that are being manufactured. Like I said, AI models are being built here. Software platforms are being built here. So I think
that's a huge jump, no? Because we've never really had that. Even our great successful tech companies have ridden the success of the American companies.
Absolutely. That's what I keep saying, that in 2014, when we talked about tech, we talked about IT, ITS, the traditional company, the big company, great company, they've done a great job. Today, we don't talk about them. We talked about all these very powerful D2C platforms, whether they're Zomato, whether they're Ola on one hand, then you talk about these semiconductor startups who are designing chips for the future. When you talk about these AI companies who are building these AI models that are going to be used in the future, electronic systems. So a lot of work is getting done today, and these MOUs that India is signing with the US, for example, on critical and emerging technologies, is a recognition that the Americans now consider Indians to be not just the back office, but actually the lead partner in how the future of tech will be shaped. And tech will be a big part of what the global economy will look like. So it's a A plus B. Tech will be.
How long do you think we need to get to the front rank?
Oh, I don't think it's about getting to the front rank as much as being amongst the front pack.
Okay, so how long will that take?
I think we are getting there, and I think in the next 2 to 3 years, the AI mission that the government has launched, the semiconductor mission that the government has launched, if these things get executed and reach a critical mass, I think by 27, 28, we should be out there really doing stuff that is
that soon.
Yeah. I'm not talking way back into the future. And look, in tech, there's no point talking too much into the future.
You never know.
Yeah, you can't see that far ahead. So what you can see, I can see till 26, 27, and anything beyond that is just shooting in the dark.
So what role, I mean, you've seen it from both sides, as an entrepreneur and as a minister, what role can government play?
Now, government is playing the right role, which is being an enabler. They are basically, in a lot of ways today, the biggest cheerleaders for the bright minds in our economy is the government. Earlier, it used to be that the government was the roadblock, the speed breaker, the brake, the defective clutch, and all of that. At least when I was an entrepreneur, and you know that.
Oh, you know the problems you had in telephony.
Yeah, exactly. So they were the pain. They were the pain points. They represented pain points. And now there's a difference, which is these minds, these brains, these youngsters are now able to dream. They can aspire to what they want to do. There's no gap between the thinking of a Silicon Valley mind and a Bangalore mind or a Hyderabad mind or Guga mind. And the problem that used to be the government, now the government is increasingly stepping aside, creating these policy frameworks that allows these guys to build and innovate and succeed or fail.
Let's take this the other way. You talked about what government can do for tech. What can tech do for governance?
Look, tech, in one of the big things, I was in London recently where the Prime Minister Tony Blair invited me to speak about India's success in tech in government.
Oh, really? At a conference?
Yeah, at a conference called The Future of Britain. And what India has done in terms of a digital ID and the India DPI, the stack, where today over 900 million Indians, 90 crore Indians today, communicate with governments, have bank accounts, have monies transferred digitally. This is, while we are taking it for granted, the rest of the world is looking at this and saying, oh, wow.
Yeah.
And they all wish they can do this. And they all wish to replicate this. So this digitalization of governance, this disintermediating government and citizen and bringing them closer through the power of tech and transforming governance in a lot of ways through tech is what India today is showing the world. And the G20 recognized that. And we are today, under the Prime Minister, all of the stack that we have built, we are now offering to the rest of the world free. So I think tech has transformed the narrative that democracies cannot deliver. Yeah. Remember, many years ago, there was this argument that only the Chinese system could deliver for large countries, and democracies, because of their chaos and their inherent corruption, can never deliver to people.
People still say that.
Yeah, people say. But we are showing that through technology, that narrative is being changed into technology can disintermediate corruption, stop leakages, and directly connect government to citizen.
Which is a huge achievement. No?
Yeah, it's a big deal. It's a very big deal. And, we don't celebrate it as much because here everybody is a cynic.
Also, we take it for granted.
But when I go out to the rest of the world and talk about what we have achieved, that old narrative of 100 rupees leaving Delhi and 15 rupees reaching the citizen, which used to be the narrative admitted by the then government themselves. Yeah. Today, 100 rupees leaves and 100 rupees reaches. For a population
at the press of a button.
At the press of a button. For a population of 1.4 billion, not for 50 million people, not for 10 million people, not a Singapore, not a Korea, but 1.4 billion Indians sitting on the back of that kind of a backbone. So I think it is a huge achievement, and it has built back trust in government and governance, which is something that we did not have for many years.
We lost completely.
Yeah. So,
but did you enjoy your time then in the ministry being on the other side?
No, I worked hard and I absolutely loved it. Hindsight, you always believe you could have done more. But
But there's still time. I
the
mean,
limit is 24 hours in a day, and you
yeah.
could only do so much in a day. But I hope, I hope I have proved worthy of that opportunity and assignment that I was given me. And finally, it's up to the people to tell me whether I've done a good job or not. But I enjoyed it.
What next for Rajeev Chandrasekhar?
No, nothing. I'll continue. I'm in politics and public life. My leaders have told me to stay focused. I will.
But if you're going to only concentrate on Kerala, are you going to be able to stand for the Rajya Sabha from Karnataka the next election?
No. I will not stand for I didn't stand for the Rajya Sabha from Karnataka this election.
Right.
The 24 was the Karnataka election. So, no, I think that period is behind me now. I mean, while I still will have great linkages with Karnataka, and my home is there, my family is there, and that is in a lot of ways my karma bhumi, and my politics took birth there.
Yeah.
My politics is now Kerala. My public life and my public services is aimed at Kerala. If I have some residual time and energy, and there's something that that's worthy of doing in Karnataka, and I can do it, I'll certainly continue to serve Bangalore. But my focus is Kerala, and within Kerala, it is Thiruvananthapuram.
So the Malayali has come home.
The Malayali is finally home. Yes.
Okay. Well, lots and lots of luck, Rajeev.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you.